Welcome to the Wildlife Awakens podcast. I'm Carolyn, a telepathic animal and nature communicator, and I'm really happy that you are here today. Today I want to talk about a very important topic that has recently become very present to me. The topic is, what exactly is the role of an animal communicator? If you already practice animal communication and have explored it, you might think, well, it's simple. Someone who talks to animals and is a translator. Well, the recent events, which I will discuss in a moment, show that this understanding can seem really incomplete. In my view, it often appears too limited and one-dimensional. So let's start from the very beginning. A few weeks ago, a humpback whale stranded on a sandbank in the Baltic Sea in Germany. He has since been guided back and safely released into the North Sea, so he can return to the Atlantic Ocean again. The journey involved many steps, including political discussions and the involvement of many different people. Animal welfare groups, veterinarians, politicians, investors, and others. But I won't focus on the rescue itself because you can find plenty about that in the media. What interests me much more is how the animal communication community responded to the situation. Because I found it truly fascinating. It also shows that there are very different ways to define the role of an animal communicator. I also want to mention that during the actual rescue process, no animal communicator was involved. I find that deeply unfortunate, and it inspired me to record this episode to bring more awareness to the work of animal communicators. Now back to the communicators who reflected on the situation in their own way. I will briefly describe a few approaches I observed and then I'll share my own perspective on what this role truly involves. There were animal communicators who connected with the whale, some called him Timmy or Hope, immediately after he stranded. Interestingly, they receive a broad message meant for humanity or for people in Germany as a whole. These first communicators focused less on his physical condition, and I could not see that they asked for his consent. I'm sharing this so you can form your own clear picture of the different communication styles. Some also used their private communication with this wild animal to promote their services. Then there were communicators who spoke with him and quickly took a side. A key question arose. Did he want to live or had he come to the Baltic Sea to die? They asked him directly and then shared their interpretations, which reflected their opinions. Another group took a different view. Some said they would not communicate with the whale as they considered this to be outside their role. They had not received a direct request and preferred to get involved only when they could take concrete action. Since they were not physically present, they did not feel able to contribute and decided not to make contact. You can already sense how wide the spectrum is. Different ways of connecting, different intentions, and different ways of continuing the dialogue. There was also another approach that stood out to me. One communicator connected with the whale several times. She first asked whether he wanted to engage in communication at all. She described his energy as reserved, curious, and a little confused. She then asked where he felt pain and how his physical condition was. Later, she asked whether he intended to continue living in his physical body or whether he was already moving into a transition phase. About a week later, she contacted him again and asked whether she could support him energetically together with her students. She then gathered with them at specific times to meditate and send healing energy. At the moment of his release, she connected with him again and asked how he was feeling. These very different examples show different ways of approaching communication with a wild animal in a situation that feels unusual or challenging for it. I don't want to judge any of these approaches. Instead, I want to share my own understanding of the role of an animal communicator in 7 key points. Point 1. In my opinion, an animal communicator enters into a telepathic dialogue with a pet, a wild animal, a diseased animal, or even a group of animals. They then share the information with the person who lives with the animal or is seeking contact, communicating it as clearly and neutrally as possible. Since we humans always bring our own energy into the interaction, it is the animal communicator's job to remain as neutral as possible. The second point is about permission. People often say that you must ask the human for permission before speaking with the animal. In this case, who would you have asked? Do you ask your partner's parents before speaking with your partner? I believe it is essential and respectful to ask the animal directly. When it comes to personal matters and a commissioned session, of course, coordinating with the human is valuable. At the same time, the animal holds the final decision because it is a primary conversation partner. The third point builds on the first. Animal communication is a dialogue, not a tool for control. Questions help gather information, and at the same time, respect means giving the animal space to share what it wishes to express. A well-rounded communication includes different perspectives, questions about health, overall state, and open invitations like, what would you like to share? Point 4. I also believe it is important to ask the animal what it truly wants. Communicating with animals can spark change and bring desires to light. The role of the communicator is similar to that of an experienced journalist. The goal is to gather as much information as possible without introducing personal opinions. Interpretation and action are left to the human. With experience and expertise, a communicator can also provide guidance or ask more in-depth questions. Questions remain the key. Another important point number 5. Does communication make sense if it isn't following by physical action? This question often stems from a human mindset that seeks concrete solutions. Even though physical action can be great, there are always possibilities on an energetic level, like sending healing energy, showing presence, listening deeply, or connecting with the animal's collective. If the animal allows it, there's always a way to contribute energetically. Point 6. An animal communicator acts as a bridge between the animal world and humans, whether within a household or between humans and wildlife. This role supports connection, deepens relationships, and fosters understanding. It becomes especially powerful when animal communicators collaborate with veterinarians, because telepathic insights can help identify symptoms more quickly and support effective treatment. You can also act as a mediator between animals, for example in a shared household or on a farm, while holding space for both sides. This involved humans, emotions, animal needs, and the connecting energy that flows through all life. Holding space and listening deeply is my point 7. In summary, an animal communicator works on an energetic, emotional, and practical level in everyday life. This role is multidimensional dimensional, demanding, and deeply meaningful. And I hope for a broader understanding of this work so that greater harmony between humans and animals can emerge. I'm sure that there are still more aspects to explore, and perhaps I'll create another episode about what an animal communicator is not. For now, I'd like to wrap things up here and would love to hear your thoughts. What experiences have you had, and how do you view this role?